search is a high intent channel. When people go to a search engine, they are the hunters. They're looking for something. In social, they're often not looking. They want to chat. You're having to interject politely, or just as an aside, like you're tapping them on the people on the shoulder saying, oh, what do you think of this, blah, blah, blah. And actually, if you oversell, people get annoyed at you and start to unlike you and so forth. But the point is, the intent is high with search. Yeah. For me, take it to an analogy of football. So search and social are members of the same football team. Search, direct is obviously a big driver of traffic. The bigger the brand grows. But that goal by direct was set up by lots of channels working together. Social is the wing. It's running up and down the side, yeah, tapping people on the shoulder, passing the ball around. And finally, organic is like passing it forward, and direct, if you've built a brand, is like the goal scorer, or organic is the goal scorer. Social doesn't score that many goals, but if it wasn't there, you'd really miss it off the team. Yeah.
This week's podcast, I sit down with Dawn Anderson. Dawn's been in the SEO industry for the past 13 years or so. She's the founder and managing director of Bertey, a Manchester-based digital marketing agency. She also speaks at conferences all around the world. She's worked with some really cool brands, and she also lectures at Manchester Metropolitan University. She also actually lectured me while I was at university a few years ago. In the podcast, we get through a lot. There's loads of topics that we cover. We talk about voice search, information retrieval, the marketing industry as a whole, how COVID-19's affected online behaviour, that kind of thing. So there's a lot, and you should stick around to the end. And if you haven't already, then press the subscribe button below. So, Dawn, how are you doing?
I'm good, and yeah, no, I'm great. I'll be looking forward to getting out of the door after being locked down for so long. Yeah, so yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I mean, I'm guess just like waiting for lockdown to be over, like everyone else. But like, you know, I'm lucky to be able to come to the office still. It's just 5 minutes from where I live, so like I'm lucky to be able to just come in and kind of, you know, have some space and get out of the house a little bit, even if it's for 5 minutes driving down the road. So
yeah, I'm very envious. No, I don't think I've been anywhere for weeks on end now, but I will say one thing: during the lockdown, I've managed to get absolutely loads of things done. But I've, you know, things that I've planned to do for years and just never got round to. So I started a project 13 years ago, and I've been chipping away at it bit by bit over the years. And this past 2-3 months, I've been able to, as well as obviously juggling client work and various other things, but I've been able to really concentrate on it, and it's made a huge difference. So yeah. So
yeah,
more news on that soon. Actually, not today.
Oh, brilliant! Is it a writing project, or is it something else?
No, it's a website. It's
okay.
No, it's not. It's an application. It's an actual application. So it's
you heard it here first.
Yeah. Well, quite a few people do know about it already. Have known me for years, but it's been like, you know, you get people that are building a boat for like 20 years.
Yeah.
They just chip away at it. Well,
yeah, like the cathedral in Barcelona that still hasn't been finished 30 years later, or however long later.
Well, this project kind of feels like that cathedral in Barcelona, yeah. So just a few weeks left, and then I'm going to really start marketing it then. So yeah.
Well, I mean, like, I think it's marketers' fault that people don't leave the house as much because of, you know, how easy it is to buy from Amazon and how easy it is to, you know, online shop and things like that. So, yeah. So anyway.
To be fair, I'm probably I'm hoping to never have to go into an actual supermarket again. I've kind of got into the habit now of ordering all my fresh fruits and vegetables from a food, you know, like a fresh fruit produce company. That's quite a few small food companies have done amazingly well, ironically during COVID, and a lot of them have been dragged kicking and screaming into the e-commerce world. I noticed that this company that I buy my stuff off, my fruit and veg and whatnot, over the weeks they started adding more products on. It was fruit, veg, then it was bread, then they were adding cheese, and then all of a sudden any proper e-commerce site appeared. And
Wow.
I mean, they're like, they must be 100 years old as a company. But all of a sudden, the first week you had to ring up. It was like, send us a message through Facebook and ring up. Then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we've got a website. Then the next thing, they're sending you marketing emails. Like, oh my God. So even though COVID has been horrific in many ways, it has actually had an impact on businesses. And I think a lot of businesses that are more traditional have suddenly had to embrace e-commerce and digital to survive, you know, and all the things like social platforms have to offer. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same for us. Like, very early in COVID, so like the first couple of weeks of COVID, we had a couple of clients pause. So like the hospitality and travel industry, which is obviously understandable.
Yeah, absolutely the same. Yeah, fashion. One of mine is a luxury fashion brand, you know, that sells really high-end dresses, and another one is Scotland's oldest shoe shop. And you know, they're in industries that had to just pause because they were impacted, you know, significantly. So
I mean, like it's funny because those industries paused, but then for me, like a couple of local businesses came in, and then they kind of needed to go online almost instantly. So they needed a website because they were key workers. So, for example, one was like an emergency call out company, so they needed to come online for the first time. And it's, you know, really, you know, obviously it's really important to get online if you aren't already. So, like for you, like what are some reservations that people have coming online? Is it just because people think that they've been so fine with it for such a long time? Like, I'm sure the shoe company, they kind of thought, you know, word of mouth's been working for like past 100 years. So what's the main reservations to think so far?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't talk too much about clients, but to be fair, they are very successful online already. But you know, a lot of brands, even though they are online, they are still impacted because they've got shops, offline shops, and particularly in fashion, the high street really has just taken an absolute walloping during this period. I mean, look at Primark.
Oh my days, Primark. Oh, wow.
Primark
Wow.
did never ever bother to have an e-commerce offering ever.
No.
Didn't realise it. But to be fair, I mean, did you see the article that said they haven't sold a single thing? And obviously the likes of Quiz and I don't know. I mean, there's been a massive shake-up because I believe Quiz has put his shops into administration because everything's just gone online. I think a lot of them have just realised that ultimately it's not worth opening up the shops again when they can drive so much traffic to their websites. And I know that, for instance, Misguided have just bought, they've just swooped in to take Oasis and Warehouse, who've been impacted by COVID. So the whole fashion industry has massively been impacted by this whole thing. So they.
I think like it's a big opportunity for acquisitions in the space, obviously, because the bigger companies can buy the smaller companies that go bust. So for, you know, obviously the big players, that they can capitalize on this time, but for maybe some of the smaller retailers that maybe may have to go into administration, you know, maybe, you know, that's what happens. So
yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, obviously fast fashion in particular really relies on that huge turnover of product. Primark, we're our example. I think they're going to do all right now. Apparently last week there was a 3-hour queue to get in, and people had tents in the outside the Manchester tents to queue. God. But I mean, Primark, even though they're giving this kind of sob story about, hey, we've not sold a single thing, they are actually part of a bigger group they're one of the biggest other brands within their group is a food company. So, it swings and roundabouts. They'll have made an absolute fortune on the food side of things. And, and obviously just the fashion side has been impacted. But they reckon that this dip in the economy is going to be almost like a boomerang. So it's just going to dip and then bounce back, because the money is still there. It's still around. It's just redistribution, if you like.
Yeah, sure. Is there any reason, well, in your opinion, why do you think, I know fast fashion is very low margin, you've got to kind of sell it quickly, but do you think that's the main reason why Primark haven't gone online so far?
Oh, do you know what? I remember a few years ago when at the university, one of the students in the digital marketing strategy course that I was lecturing, they actually used Primark as one of their case studies.
Oh, yeah.
And they were digging into, the reasons why. And I think Primark literally were like, no, our model is mass shops, they just have never shown any interest in it. And funnily enough, I saw on Twitter that somebody had said, hey, Primark, you better get online, blah, blah. They've just got this model and it's hugely successful. It works. And they just aren't interested at all. So, I think that they will, it's only 3 months. They'll make it up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's true. So, like, while we're on the topic of kind of like COVID and recessions, etc., just like shifting on to a more technical side of SEO. So, like, how do you think Google have handled COVID? I know there's a lot of misinformation, fake news, just poorly referenced information around the web. So, in search results, etc., how do you think that Google have handled it?
I think they did
how have they handled it?
Yeah, no, I think they did a good job with it. Obviously, when something first hits the news, I mean, we know that COVID was never, nobody'd heard of it 6 months ago. It's a new virus. So it's a query that nobody's ever heard of before. So, we have the old RankBrain and Google BERT and so forth, and I know we're going to come on to that a bit later. But queries, there's an accumulation of data based on past queries and present queries. And obviously, as soon as you start to see things that have never been seen before, they have to work out, well, what does all this mean? What kind of query is it? I mean, what the hell is COVID? So obviously, very quickly, they'll have realised, oh, this is a health query. Yeah. So I presume that we know that there's extra caution around your money or your life queries, which is to do with anything to do with health, legal, finance, that kind of thing. COVID sits very firmly in the health spectrum. And actually, there is a huge division inside Google called Google Health, yeah? And in different countries, for instance, in America, health queries, I mean, they obviously matter here, but at least we have the NHS. In America, for instance, people have to pay a lot for if they don't have private medical care is expensive and so forth, the insurance. So a lot of people self-diagnose. So you can imagine.
So dangerous.
But if you can't afford to pay for healthcare, then 1 in 5 queries. I was at a conference a few years ago, and the head of Google Health was speaking. 1 in 5 queries is a health-related query. Yeah, wow. That's a lot of queries, yeah.
In America or the world?
I think generally that was, just generally.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it was America or globally. But anyway, it's a huge amount of queries. So obviously this really, really matters. So the trust and validity, because if somebody takes bad advice from a search engine, then, they have a moral responsibility to serve something that's trustworthy and truthful and with an element of cross-reference fact-checking. So there is this notion, I know there's a lot of people talk about it in the SEO space. This is a layman's term. So it's not a term that search engineers are likely to refer to. It's a term that's been created to guide quality raters, Google's quality raters, to know what a trustworthy result is, particularly in the area of your money or your life queries, such as COVID, such as flu, any kind of pandemic, whatever, yeah. And that is EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, yeah. So that will kick in. Those kind of measures will kind of kick in, really, around this kind of time. So the quality raters will have looked at the kind of sites that represent, and it's really just a, if you like, it's not a measure, it's not a metric, it's more like a standard of pool of types of sites, yeah, that are trustworthy, trusted sources on health and so forth. So those kind of sites will likely rise to the top when it comes to anything around health. You're talking WebMD and so forth, that kind of thing. But obviously, as the news built up around COVID, because obviously the news, it's a universal query, because obviously universal search kicks in because people want to look at pictures. For instance, there was this thing called COVID toes. Did you hear of COVID toes?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So this thing popped up that seemed to be a symptom of coronavirus, but in children and in healthy adults with a strong immune system, where they ended up with this huge rash on their toes, which literally was like a bonkers crazy like rash that drove them mad, and it was itching. So I kind of had this thing in about February. My toes were itching like mad, and I was saying to my husband, I can't understand why my toes are just absolutely insanely crazy. So I sees it online, COVID toes, and then I heard Dr. Hillary on Breakfast TV talking about COVID toes. So the first thing I do is I go to Google COVID toes. Well, I read some news pieces about COVID toes saying, yes, it seems to be a symptom that doctors are saying that they're seeing a lot of. But at the same time, I was like, well, I actually want to see what it looks like, because I want to see if my toes looked like that. So you're not just in general search, you're into image search then, yeah?
Yeah.
Plus also people wanted to see what pictures of, how is it impacting the immune system, medical pictures and so forth. And obviously the news, the number of times I typed into Google News, coronavirus vaccine, because it was like, oh my God, when's this going to end type thing.
Yeah.
So I think Google did overall a good job. And over time, you saw the minute you type coronavirus in, eventually, the whole page had the SOS alert, which was red. Everything's in red. They do that whenever there's like Ebola, but they do it in a territory. And again, that's something that the Google Health lady was talking about. It's, from what I understand, it's territorial, yeah. So if you type in England, or I don't know, some country that's not impacted by Ebola, for instance, you type in, I've got a cold and temperature, then it's not going to say Ebola. But if you're in an area where, it could be a symptom of Ebola, high risk, it's more likely to show that kind of thing, yeah. So there is a regional impact, but obviously this is a global pandemic, so it's everywhere, yeah. So one of those unprecedented things, and I think overall they handled it well. The knowledge graph built up well over time, everything, pictures, the whole accumulation of data. And have you ever heard of this notion of where there's conflicts between data sources? You see it a lot where there's an image comes in from one website on a knowledge panel, and then text from another website, or featured snippets is another one.
Yeah, go on, explain.
Yeah, so say you type a query in, it's a featured snippet, and you'll see the image comes from one website, like Money Supermarket, but the actual text comes from another website, like Compare the Market. So it's databases, because knowledge graphs are built often with structured, lots of types of data. The knowledge base, yeah, structured data, semi-structured data, and then obviously the text from the web, which is the blurb, yeah. Obviously, they're trying to tie together all these different types of very structured, semi-structured, and unstructured blurb. So occasionally there's a discord, and obviously image search is a different thing altogether. So they're pulling in an image thinking, oh, that's about car insurance. But hey, this page is authoritative about car insurance as well. So I think, so that's just one example. And then what happens is that builds over time as more entity determination is worked out. And that's what's happened with coronavirus. So that's a very long way of saying, I think they did a good job, given that it's 6 months ago, it was never heard of. Now there's a huge amount of resources and data, and they seem to be bubbling up to the surface, the trusted sources, and providing a good overview across universal search. Does that answer that?
That was the best answer ever. That was an essay. That was really good. That was really in depth. That's made me, understand it, and hopefully the listeners understood it as well. So that's for websites and the knowledge graph, etc. But when it comes to I don't know how to put this, but tabloids such as the Daily Mail, etc. How are Google able to kind of sieve out fact from fiction, specifically around the coronavirus? I know that obviously they've got they're seen as an authoritative figure around the web, presumably, but when it's something as serious as coronavirus, how are they? Because when you type in coronavirus, there's tons of news articles that come up as well. Because like WebMD's obviously, a trusted source, as you just explained. But things like the Daily Mail, you can pay to have an article in there about anything. So how can you distinguish a good news article from a bad one?
Yeah. So it's very hard, ultimately. I mean, the point is, one thing I am doing, and we're going to again come on to this a bit later, is I see with algorithmic changes, sometimes these broad core algorithmic changes, I feel that there's a big truth measure in there, yeah? So data and accuracy and so forth. And a lot of the papers that they're in search are around how can we determine trust? Who are the trusted authors, yeah? Is this person an author that just has lots of inaccuracy and doesn't cite reputable sources, proper medical references, and they don't cite peer-reviewed papers or peer-reviewed research and so forth? So I think Google and all the other search engines are becoming increasingly good at determining the quality authors who take peer-reviewed research seriously and are able to, as writers, differentiate between good research, bad research, hearsay. Lots of people who say, oh, I think, yeah. Remember when you're at university, the first thing that, when I'm teaching, supervising master students, the first thing that people say, and when I had this said to me when I started my masters, nobody wants to know what you think unless you're a doctor, you have a PhD in that subject matter, because everybody thinks something. Yeah, we're all biased. Yeah, where's your evidence? Yeah, I think search engines are getting increasingly good at being able to understand, is this person an author who is citing third-party research well, yeah, first-party research, and are they referencing other authors who are experts in that field, yeah? So I think that there'll be some kind of graph structures and trust algorithms built up that will work towards surfacing the truth more and more. But at the same time, it's very challenging because if there is there's something new and exciting, like the other day, there was something that came out that said, hey, there's a really cheap drug that doctors can now use that seems to have an impact on preventing deaths as much from coronavirus when people get into a coma. And it costs like £5 a dose and all this carry on. That turned out to be true. However, because the newness and freshness of the story, the search engines, if they're building like a trust-based, well, this is a body of evidence, so they look to the body of evidence, that kind of page would suffer because it's new. Yeah. The new research. So new research and people that are coming out with controversial or opposing opinions potentially will fall foul to the fake news type algorithms that are in place. And I think also that they do some stuff with almost like with social listening as well.
Yep.
Ultimately, the link graph goes for me well beyond web search. Information retrieval reaches into all the corners of the world, yeah. And there will be nodules that stand out everywhere. Algorithms are everywhere, all around us, yeah. So trust stands out, vagueness stands out. Everything, once you start to map it in a link graph, will stand out, depending on your link pattern, the measure. So people, the story of 6 degrees of separation. We're all connected within 6 degrees of each other, yeah?
Yeah.
That's a kind of form of link graph, yeah? So these are everywhere, not just in search. They're in every connection that we have in the world, yeah? So I think that they are very clever people at search engines, and they will be constantly working on algorithms to try to be objectively surfacing truth, but at the same time to avoid being censors, because freedom of speech is also important, yeah? So, if you're a trash newspaper, eventually people on search engines will find you out. So
yeah, I mean, that's what people want to read sometimes, isn't it? There's a lot of clickbait out there, but when it comes to life and death, that's
exactly. Well, that's why they have these your money or your life queries, and those kind of queries are subject more to this whole notion of EAT, and they're under extra scrutiny, because if somebody types in coronavirus and gets bad advice, doesn't bother to ring up the doctor, they could die. So these are extra scrutiny. So you have to be extra authoritative, yeah, on that subject. Yeah.
Do you personally know if kind of large publishers, do they go through any of this training to kind of ensure that these sites reputable sources properly, or is it are people kind of writing from just a general copy point of view rather than kind of writing an article in a way like a university paper, for example? Is there any formal training in place for that?
It certainly should have. I mean, for me, all good journalists should cite others, and I think reputable journalists generally do.
Yeah.
Reputable PRs generally do. I mean, I think there's a big crossover now between all of our industries. For instance, there's a lot of people in SEO claiming to be journalists, but they're really just not. And there's an awful lot of people in SEO claiming to be PRs, but they're not. Yeah, but they're trying. But the point is, and I don't mean that in a degrading way, journalism is a field, an expert field, and writing for newspapers is, again, an expert field. There are notions such as the inverted pyramid. Yeah, there's a structure to a news piece. Google News, again, has a criteria to be included, and you have to pass that criteria to get into there. And there should be a minimum threshold of quality for news out there. Simple as that. And I don't mean, when I say that about SEOs claiming to be PRs, there's a lot of PRs also claiming to be SEOs. So, and they're not, yeah. Our worlds are all merged, and we all think we can do a bit of everything, yeah. But we probably can't that well, yeah. So I think the true PRs will rise to the surface. Again, same thing, yeah. The true SEOs will rise to the surface. Same thing. The true journalists will, 20%, the whole Pareto principle, there'll be 20% of people that are creating 80% of the quality stuff, and they will rise to the surface, yeah? Search engines will detect that, or they will increasingly get better at detecting that, using things like machine learning and so forth, yeah? So, yeah. I think that there definitely needs to be proper training for newspapers. I think the quality newspapers do. Again, trash newspapers, Google will find you out. Yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, just always write articles thinking that a university lecturer is breathing down your neck.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to write. You don't have to do citations in exactly the same way. You're not going to have to do like necessarily Harvard referencing all the way through.
Yeah.
But you could just do a link source, and good quality pieces. I can see an SEO piece. They link to Wikipedia for everything because they think, oh, well, it's, what do they call it? Hubs and authorities algorithm. Fair enough, there is an element of hubs and authorities and kind of trusted seeds. But at the same time, the reason they're linking to Wikipedia is maybe because they haven't actually taken the time to go and actually find the reputable sources in a field, like through Google Scholar. They haven't gone and actually researched to see who are the writers in this field, who are the authorities. Wikipedia is not an authority. In fact, do you remember when you're at university, you get told if you link to Wikipedia, if you reference Wikipedia, that's an immediate down mark. Yeah, Wikipedia is a starting point to go and find authorities. Yeah. So SEOs tend to link to Wikipedia often or guest posters because they've not spent time doing the research into who are the real authorities in that field. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same with journalists. Good journalists will spend their time going, researching who are the real proper authorities, not just Wikipedia.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wikipedia, it's
good.
Like a good
starting point. Yeah,
a good starting point. Yeah, I was going to say, if you just put a general topic in Google, Wikipedia is more likely than not to come up. So you go in there when you start to explore a topic. So, for example, you typed in SEO, and then all the different elements come up. Technical content, that kind of thing, and then within that there'll be different elements you can break down. And then at the bottom you got the citations of the best places to look, and then within that you can look around there. So Wikipedia is a good place to start. But if someone's writing a journal piece or something, they could be at the same time changing Wikipedia because it's a crowdsourced site, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually, in many countries, they have very few actual human editors there.
Okay.
So very few. Particular, well, the non-English speaking countries, they have hardly any editors. So, and obviously, people do take advantage of it. A couple of years ago, did you see that? I think it was that company who does the jackets. To call the company that does jackets, mountain jackets, skiing jackets. I can't remember, but anyway, they did a huge. Yeah, them. Yeah, they did a huge piece where they actually hijacked the Wikipedia page for mounting something, and actually Wikipedia were pretty upset because these are volunteers, and I know that it doesn't make hardly any money, Wikipedia. It's not profit making, but it's a huge resource. It actually contributes massively to the knowledge graph. It's the most crawled resource on Earth by search engines and in information retrieval. It's responsible. The English Wikipedia is responsible for fueling Google BERT in the first place because the English words were taught to BERT from the English Wikipedia. So people should respect it more. So Wikipedia is not an authority. It's a home of authorities, if you like. It's a home of every starting point of every topic in the world. But then you should go and explore further. Look at the papers at the bottom. I mean, I go to Wikipedia every single day for one thing or another. And actually, that's one thing that is actually very credible at the moment. A lot of these big updates, for me, it seems that people creating content, if it isn't reinforced by the likes of Wikipedia or trusted sources like that, Ordnance Survey data, like postcode data, then it's seen as less trustworthy. Yeah. So if you're doing location-based search, yet you're claiming that your post town is not the same as one of the ones on Wikipedia in location, then it's less trusted. So Wikipedia should be respected massively, for sure.
Yeah, sure. I mean, more and more articles like years ago. I didn't see it, but more over the last few years. Say, for example, celebrities, they've got a lock on the profile, so only certain people can change the details on it. So it's good to see more and more of that come in, just so that there's like an authority figure over it to show that someone's monitoring over it. I'm not too sure who locks it or anything, but it's good that there's some sort of control over there to make sure someone's in control, and it can still keep its credibility.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, building trust and authority is very, very important. Particularly in an industry like SEO, for instance, just general digital marketing, which is to all intents and purposes unpoliced and relies on a good citizen, people being good citizens of the community, if you like. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like we're in the legal profession or we're in the medical profession. So we have to be mindful of our reputation, because that's all we have, really.
I mean, at the same, you say that we're not the legal profession, but we kind of could. Everyone in the legal profession uses Google, don't they? So, like, what we do as marketers,
that's why it's important that we encourage any clients that are in legal, medical, or fields, to make sure that everything that they create is credible, and reinforce them. Look. This kind of stuff is being looked at by 1 in 5 people. And, I think, I can't remember who was sharing it, one of the Google Webmaster team was talking about how a surgeon literally, goes on YouTube to watch how to do procedures. It's like,
that'll be the future. That'll be the future. Like, you'd be able to get a degree on an iPhone app, I'm sure.
Well, I'm absolutely sure of it. The point is, we need to make sure that what we do is trustworthy and credible, and everything impacts everything in the world in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, sure. So we just talked about a lot of interesting stuff. I'll go back to a little bit more technical stuff a bit later, but I just want to find out a little bit more about you. And you're obviously well known in the SEO space, but maybe for people who are outside of the SEO space and in the broader marketing space, like, how did you get into SEO, and like, why did you find it interesting? What makes you tick, and what made you specifically want to go into technical SEO, and kind of how did you learn it? So, like, if you give us like a background of your SEO journey, start from when you began up until where you are now.
Yeah, so it's 13 years ago now when I started with SEO, and it was purely by accident. I owned a completely different type of company. I had a construction company, funnily enough, and I had quite a lot of vans. how peculiar, yeah. So I had quite a lot of vans on the road, people working for me, in an office filled with people dealing with home maintenance needs and so forth. And that was pretty stressful. And it was really just in the days where people were starting to get websites built. So I had a couple of websites built for the business, and they were absolutely appalling by people. So and it's just laughable, really, now when I look back at it. And in the end, I thought, I'm going to have a go at this myself. So I started building a website, and so I started learning HTML. Then I moved on to PHP. I'm an amateur at that, but I really love it. And MySQL and JavaScript, etc. And then things changed in the industry, and the recession hit, the 2008-9 recession, and the construction industry overall just massively got impacted. The business got really impacted. So I had to start to look around and think, well, what am I going to do? And actually, I'd found that I was increasingly spending time on the website more and more, trying to optimize it, trying to get traffic and so forth anyway, and building it and tinkering with HTML. and watching videos and whatnot. And so it seemed like a natural progression. I wanted to then become a developer, an actual proper hardcore developer. So I spent the summer of 2000, well, that was 2007, 8, thereabouts.
In a basement somewhere in
No.
Manchester.
No, I bought a £2,000 course of videos, like CDs on PHP. Yeah.
Wow.
So I literally spent the whole.
Still got them.
Yeah, I have. Wow. Yeah, I mean they're out of date. They're PHP 4 or something like that. Wow. So I literally spent the whole summer, every single day, going through this course, learning PHP. I'm still not amazing at it now, and the whole thing has moved on a lot. I can do a bit. But anyway, I did that, and then eventually I was like, right, I feel ready now to go and get a job in the industry as a developer. But obviously I was it's a funny combination when you're older, because really I was junior, but I was too old to be a junior. So it's quite a challenge when you're like heading into your 40s, which I was then, and looking to get into that whole dev space. And then funnily enough, what happened is one of the recruiters that I was dealing with rang me up and said, "Hey Dawn, you don't know anything about SEO, do you?" I was like, "Well, yeah, because I've done loads of SEO courses as well in my spare time. Well, in this whole 6 months that I've been like hunkered down learning, I'd also done a course with web SEO and done loads of other stuff and got some small certificates in SEO. And obviously I've been doing my own sites for a couple of years by then. And I'd learned a lot of stuff. And also I had a guy who was giving me really great, helpful advice, an enterprise information architect that I came across, who had worked on some really big sites, and he'd been giving me great advice for quite a few months then. And to this day, he's quite a good, trusted advisor for me. He taught me, if you like, how to structure a site using great information architecture, talk about how the core of a site works and, semantic headings and really everything around that whole build a site for SEO rather than throw links at it, that kind of thing, which I've seen a lot this past decade. It's not ever been my approach. It's always been more about how to build it using good IA. So anyway, this recruiter said, have you ever done SEO? There's a company here that are looking to take on an exec. And that was Latitude. So anyway, I went in to see them. I was like, well, I wasn't even thinking about becoming an SEO. And that's where I met. Well, it was Phil McKechnie, actually, who's still, again, a friend and trusted advisor to this day, who's still in the digital space. And he gave me a job. I know, again, I was the oldest SEO exec in the company. But yeah, so that's kind of how I started. But I'd already been doing SEO, but unofficially, for a few years. And so I worked for a few agencies, big agencies. I worked on some big brands, and then eventually I had my own projects that I was working on, and eventually I just moved towards working for myself. And so since 2012, I've had my own, if you like, boutique agency, consultancy, and I don't ever intend to build a big agency. Each their own. I don't really want to have a room full of 50 people. I would rather be much more hands-on, dealing with just a few select brands who, stay for years. I know them, they know me, I know all their team, etc. And they progress really well, and they, I have a great retention. So, so that's really where I'm at now, really. And like I said, I don't have masses of clients. I'm not the cheapest in the world, for sure. But it's more of a, how can I help this brand, who often have an in-house team that are relatively junior in the operational, who are working on the operational side of things, and really helping them to fully understand more around the concepts of search and how they can implement that in an actionable way into the strategies, and trying to think more like a search engine almost. Yeah. So that's a long way round again. But, you know, I lecture as well, and I lecture as well, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So, like, I just want to go back quick because it links into the next thing I wanted to talk about. So, like, I wanted to quickly go back to kind of like when you first learning SEO, like, where were you learning from? I know you said you did a course, but like, what other kind of resources were you looking at? And
you know, the funny thing is, when you've got a website and you're trying
more hands-on.
Yeah, I've always been very, very hands-on, and to this day, I'm like rolling my sleeves up, right in there, testing things on sites. You know, this morning I spent like 6 hours trying to like analyze some logs using Cloudflare, trying to work out the patterns, trying to think, hey, how's this crawling happening? There are patterns. You have to just look, really, really, really look, and you'll see patterns emerge. Google Search Console is amazing for showing patterns, and that is why they give us examples. These are like, it's Cluedo. These are clues, yeah. It's like, what is it called? Cats in Plum. Is there a Cats in Plum in Cluedo?
Oh, I'm not sure. That's the best analogy ever, though. Like, comparing Google Search Console and Cluedo.
It really is. Like, it was Mrs. White with the candlestick in the living room, in the drawing room. Swear to God, those patterns, about around crawl frequency, around, you know, importance, around does it really matter pages, you know, and I'm very hands-on, but at the same time, so that's it. I'm very hands-on, and to this day, I've learned SEO really by doing, but then obviously I've been to a lot of conferences where I've learned from others, and I do watch from time to time webinars, and I've been on webinars a lot in the past, and I watch a lot of information retrieval videos. There's a great series by Professor Hannah Bass, which is the best modern information retrieval set of videos I've ever come across. And I've got a ton of books on information retrieval, which is really what web search is part of, and the engine room of how search works. So I spend a lot of my time reading those kinds of things, trying to work out how's the machine working itself rather than algorithm chasing. And I learn from a lot of researchers, but I also do learn off other SEOs as well. I try and avoid the clickbaity SEO things out there. And I tend to try and avoid things that are not very well supported in research. And there's a lot of SEO blog posts that are really just, they tend to be a regurgitation of, this kind of regurgitation of, he said this, they said that, blah, blah, blah. But where's the evidence? So I don't tend to spend a lot of my time on that kind of thing, really. And obviously in 2012, when Penguin came around, I've been in SEO then for like 5 years, something like that. I'm working on my own sites for longer. So I thought, right, I need to really understand more about how SEO actually fits in with the web marketing environment as a whole and the world, because at the time I was very siloed in SEO, and it's very easy to be like that when you're very engrossed and focused SEO, because you tend to be so busy looking at the log file analysis or a particular website, or you tend to be a bit blinkered to what's happening in the rest of the web or in the rest of the world a little bit. It's all consuming. So I then thought, right, I better go and get some formal qualifications in actual search here, or in digital. So then I started in 2012, I did the Google Squared. Then I went from Google Squared, I finished that, and I went straight on to doing a postgrad with the IDM in digital. Did that for 2 years, and then straight on to do a master's for 2.5 years at digital at Manchester Met. And then I came across when I was doing my master's dissertation, which is hell, obviously. Dissertations are awful. And they seem to just take over your life. So, but a lot of that involves digging into Google Scholar, and obviously much more trusted sources than I'd previously come across, because I think a lot of us tend to live on not in Google Scholar. A lot of us don't frequent Google Scholar a lot because research papers can tend to be quite dry. But when you're studying for formal qualifications such as a master's or a Bachelor of Science, you are forced to go and hunt around in, Elsevier or Google Scholar or research papers, Forrester. You have to go and look at things that are more credible because you are judged on the quality of your citations to a large extent. So that's when I really came to realise that actually search is not just a lot of SEOs having an opinion. There is a science here, and this is the science of information retrieval. And that's how I came across loads of papers on crawling and indexing, and obviously there's all the patents as well, which Bill Slowski writes about. And Bill is very, very trusted in our space. He's an ex-lawyer, so he really understands patents. But in those patents at the bottom, there are often 20, 30 academic papers referenced. So those are the papers that I tend to spend a lot of my time going to look at. I have Google alerts on all of the researchers in particular spaces. So, for instance, I know who the Google researchers in the crawling space are. To be honest, they do a lot of crossover because they'll a lot of, even though information retrieval is increasingly fragmented, and as SEO is increasingly fragmented, as we know, spoke about that with Mark the other day, as the industry is maturing, it's splitting up into like technical SEOs, PR SEOs, local SEOs and so forth. An industry such as information retrieval, which is a fork of computer science, has had many, many years to become very fragmented. But at the same time, you'll find that a lot of engineers who work at Google, Microsoft, Yandex, any company that has search at the heart of it, has engineers that can turn their hand to paid search, link analysis, web spam content and so forth, because they're all just small micro topics within the bigger topic of information retrieval. And that's why I'd encourage people to watch the videos, because it's a bit like, hey, I'm doing a maths degree. Well, maths researchers or mathematicians, they tend to be good at calculus, algebra, statistics. But, consider that all of these different parts of search, such as link analysis, trust and authority detection, compression algorithms, machine learning, web content analysis, they're all the little bits that are parts of the discipline. Maths, if we equated the maths as a discipline, calculus, algebra, blah, 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 are all sectors of maths. So I follow a lot of the people in IR, and a lot of them have specialisms that I follow even more closely. And some people say to me, hey, but it's not actionable. I completely beg to differ, because applying the principles of understanding search more has enabled me to get some really great results with clients, because especially the bigger projects that are really search engines in themselves, the big websites, because crawling some of the biggest websites of the world is a challenge, and it's very easy for a search engine to lose sight of what this site's about, particularly when you start to bring words into it, linguistics. Yeah. Again, a long answer, sorry. I hope it was useful, yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, I mean, a big skill that you've got through all your years of experience is actually being able to interpret the data. You can read as much You can read as many articles as you want, as many videos as you want, but unless you're able to kind of get your thoughts and ideas and interpret it and then apply it to something, then it's pretty much useless. So do you get most of your research, most of your information through Google Scholar? And you mentioned videos. Like where do you find them? Is it through YouTube and things like that?
Yeah, literally do a search for information retrieval. There's loads of videos, yeah, and consider that they are the heart of search. So, information retrieval and marketing together is SEO in my mind, yeah. That's the two. One is the science, one is the buzz, yeah. It's a marriage of the two. It's an intersection, technical intersection of marketing and information retrieval. Good SEO is not manipulation. Good SEO is helping the search engine to see beyond fuzz, yeah, fuzziness, ambiguity. Oh, what does this mean? Oh, is that the URL or is that the URL? Which path is the right way to go when I'm crawling this website? Does that jaguar mean car, or is it a big cat? That kind of thing. It's helping a search engine to understand the meaning of the words you're trying to convey to your audience, yeah. So that's SEO. It's not manipulation. Good SEO is not manipulation, yeah. You don't need to manipulate, in my mind, when you do SEO well, because the popularity will rise to the surface. Inflated popularity is another thing altogether, and obviously that's something that search engines are also increasingly getting better at detecting. Again, algorithms are growing, data is growing, machine learning is growing, feed forward learning from machine learning is training the algorithms to know what is a paid guest blog post, yeah, and they'll train it to know what it looks like. And if you've ever used any of the machine learning tools out there and thrown some text in to categorize, it'll literally just be a categorization algorithm. That's it. It'll literally be like classifier. The classifier says yes, paid blog post. Classifier says no. Classifier yes. Classifier no. And it will build a picture of what does a paid guest blog post look like. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. That's it, yeah. So we should probably spend our time doing better things than trying to trick search engines.
Yeah, there's no way past Google at the end of the day, and as SEOs, it's our job to present the best version of a website for the user to hand to Google for them to crawl.
So, it's our job to encourage our clients to realise that they have great content that they create themselves every day. Every single handbook on the topic that they are experts in or the field is content that they can use in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes the best content that our clients could produce is sat creating dust on the shelves of their own offices. Yeah. So it's about utilising what you have and turning that into knowledge that you want to share with an audience. And sometimes it's not even expensive. Doing these kind of podcasts that you're doing, you're creating great content that hopefully will be useful. It's not. It's another league.
This one.
Thank you. Yeah, it's another league. It's another league entirely to saying, "Hey, I've got an article for your website. All I want is a do follow link." That kind of stuff. That's not good content.
Doesn't really mean anything because, again, that's in some it's more about the user and kind of giving something that benefits the user more than just trying to manipulate getting a link. At the end of the day, it's more to build your profile as a website and making have a diverse and contextual backlink profile. You're not just getting a link for the sake of it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I remember Dwayne Forrester used to be the equivalent of the Google Webmaster Trends Analyst at Microsoft Bing. He came out with a great quote, and everybody cites it. The best backlink is the backlink you didn't expect to get. Yeah. So
I agree.
You know what? Seriously, you don't need to go hunting for these things. Yeah, in my mind, good links come to people who create things that are worth having. Yeah, I'm going to link when I write something. So I did a piece for the search engine land around Google BERT. I don't know whether you saw that. I was around the whole like, what is BERT, blah, 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 because I've been studying it for a while. I linked to places that I knew more about BERT than me, yeah. So I engine land piece to the actual academic paper, Google BERT, yeah, that came out in 2018. I linked to things like the Hugging Face community, which is doing a lot of stuff around Google BERT. I didn't link manipulatively. I linked because it's going to help the user. And actually, I know that these places, there's further good, valuable information. Yeah, that's. They didn't ask me. That paper, the author of that paper, Google BERT, he didn't say, "Hey, Dawn Anderson." Not that he knows me. "Hey, Dawn Anderson, can you link to the paper on Google BERT?" He doesn't care that I'd linked to him, yeah? But I'm linking to him because that's the original paper on Google BERT, yeah? He doesn't know that I've sent a link, yeah? Or that team of researchers does not know I've sent a link. And that's the best link. The best link is the type of link you didn't expect to get, yeah? Or that you didn't know was coming. That means you're becoming trusted, yeah. Whereas you have there's some industries that are worse than others for the whole guest blog thing, yeah. And there's some industries as well that are really bad for paid linking, particularly in the influencer marketing space, yeah. Industries, you know who you are, yeah. I think people know who they are if I'm talking about them, yeah. So they need to be mindful that they are on the links that they're paying for are probably at this stage not counting. So they should probably save their money. Yeah. So,
Sue, you're a very, very busy person with all the research that you do, all the papers that you read, doing the hands-on client work yourself, running the day-to-day runnings of a business, but also you're a lecturer at MMU in Manchester, where you lectured me in second year of university. How do you manage to balance everything? I know there's a lot of, there's a lot of hours kind of, I'm not sure how many hands-on hours you do teaching, but there's also like the marketing and things like that. Like how do you manage to balance everything? Are you an octopus?
No, not. Well, I do less. I don't do a lot of lecturing now, and it's more just less lecturing from time to time. So, and supervising. This past few years, I've supervised master's students, so who are undertaking their actual master's dissertations. So, that was really exciting. So that's a bit of work, but that's more just phone calls, Zoom calls, Skype calls with the student, and helping them and guiding them through the process, the various stages of their master's dissertation rather. So that's that. I'm not obviously speaking at many conferences anymore because nobody is, because nobody's travelling. But I did decide this year I was cutting back on that anyway, so that I could concentrate just more on the clients that I work with and my own projects more. So I don't even know. I really only ever deal with a handful of clients at one time. Again, they have to be a really good fit for me, and I have to be a good fit for them. And I tend to be very involved with them and their team. So that's my business, if you like, is not a traditional agency. Again, I wouldn't necessarily have the time to run a big agency that's just not what I'm looking to do. And I have been working for myself for many years. As I say, I'm kind of experienced in business anyway before I got into digital, because I've worked for myself in my own companies from being in my 20s. So so I know all about the having to file my VAT return. I've got a great accountant. I absolutely hate having to do my VAT every 3 months, but I use things like really great software like Xero, and I have an amazing accountant. And over the years, I've actually found a lot of ways to do things that are big time savers.
Processing.
Yeah, processes, machinery, processes, software, technology, that kind of thing. So, I've been working for myself for a long time. Yeah.
Got everything systemized and organized. That's more important. And I heard you on another podcast that was talking about, just systemizing everything. Like for example, like taking advantage of all the different Google products like Google Calendar. And, I found that useful at university. And like the biggest question that I wanted to ask you, well, one of them, because so many, was, I know my opinions on this, but what would you say to people that think university isn't worth it if you want to go into say digital marketing, for example, specifically SEO?
Okay, so I see this discussion a lot, and
I've talked about it so many times.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people presume that I took the traditional route, and I was an undergraduate in my 20s, blah blah blah, etc. Not so. I've had the merit. I've had the benefit of both, of working, doing the hands-on, and doing the actual, not having that formal education, because I didn't actually do a Bachelor of Science. I didn't do a first degree ever. Yeah, I started working at 14, and I carried on working all the way through my working life. Yeah. Wow. And then at 40, so I got into it. So in 20 odd, I started running my own businesses. And then the recession came, changed, went into SEO by accident, because in life you have to reinvent yourself sometimes, several times, because I see this is coming soon. Now, the last recession, I had to be like, oh my God, I need to rethink myself. And, when you have a mortgage, you have to rethink. And that's a measure of the person being able to reformulate. So it's an evolution of yourself, if you like. So, and I see that coming now. I think a lot of people are having to rethink their lives just since coronavirus, because a lot of people have been made redundant. A lot of people have lost contracts. A lot of people have been furloughed. People are having to have this fight or flight attitude now. And sometimes a lot of lessons will be learned that will actually make them better people. So yes, no. So no, I didn't have a normal degree, first degree. So I didn't go to university at 18 to 20 odd, and I didn't do the whole freshers week and then get, have a great, amazing time and be a traditional student and trek around Thailand at 20 odd, like they all do. I was working. In fact, actually, to be totally honest, at 19, I was a mum. Yeah. So my son is 30 odd now. Yeah. So he's working, and I was a mum as well. So not your traditional route at all. Yeah. So at 40, then I thought I'm going to have to get a formal qualification, because I've got all this hands-on experience of doing digital, all this hands-on experience of business, but it's all like the school of life, yeah? Apart from my O-levels and GCSEs, O-levels back then. So now I thought, right, well, better get in there. That's why I took the postgrad, and then I did the masters. And actually, the university, it's only because I had the postgrad previously that they let me into Manchester Met, because it's very difficult to get on a master's course with what they call grandfather rights, yeah, which is life experience and industry experience. They probably would have let me in, but it's easier when you've got another formal qualification, which is a postgrad. And, the day I graduated was like one of the proudest days of my life, because I was like, oh my God, I've finally got a degree. I'm finally get to wear a cap and gown, at 40 odd. So what I would say to people is, don't judge people whose shoes you're not in, for a start. I would never, ever, ever, I'm never the slightest bit, I never regret going off and doing my master's, even though it was a lot of years. I learned probably more than I've ever learned in all those other years of hands-on experience in my life, yeah? Because I learned to be much more strategic. I learned strategy. A lot of the stuff I'd been doing up to that point were very tactical, yeah? Doing a master's and master's level thinking, or even university level thinking, you are taught how to think differently. So instead of just jerking from one like crisis to the next, you're able to step back, be a bit more calm. You have to be, because you have a ton of deadlines, juggling all these plates. So there's a lot of learnings to be had from university. Yeah, it just makes life a bit easier if you're able to be much calmer and much more strategic and look down and understand all these channels, how everything's working together. Yeah. So that is the biggest things I've learned from having structured learning. Yeah. That's not to say that people can't do really well who are just more hands-on school of life. Yeah. And there's some affiliates that do amazingly well who haven't got any formal qualifications, and they're millionaires, billionaires, whatever. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. There's different routes you can take. Both are not easy routes. You have to be very determined. You have to be constantly. The Pareto law is very true to everything. I know I keep harking back to that. There's many things that you'll be like, oh my God, this is a waste of time. Why am I wasting my time doing this? It's a nightmare. And then just as you're about, I know it seems like a cliche and it's so true, just as you're like, oh, I'm ready to give up, some solution comes, yeah. It's the 80-20 rule that is everywhere in the world, yeah. 80% of the work produces 20% of the results. 20% of the work produces 80% of the result. To get the result, you have to do the 100%. I know it says like, what do they call it? Hustle nonsense. But and I'm not into that whole like hustle, kill yourself, work like a do. But there are certain power laws. Pareto is one of them. Yeah. So everybody has to work really hard. The point is, I'm not going to judge anybody for not doing a degree, but at the same time, a degree is great. I know you leave university with a load of debt. That's a nightmare. Yeah. And that's a shame. But again, even managing debt makes you an adult. Yeah.
So. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, like my opinions on university, like at the time, I was there, like I was kind of like struggling to see like the necessarily like the benefit of it at the time. But like when I look back, I think about all the intangible skills that I've learned. So like the day-to-day things, like the day-to-day content of university, I don't always use it all, but some of the skills like communication skills, project management skills, but just like organization, that kind of thing. You in effect kind of learn how to learn. So like you kind of get told where to look, and then you learn yourself, and you find out what kind of learner you are. And that's I always say the biggest thing about university and the most important thing about university, and I usually recommend it, is you kind of find out more about yourself and how you learn, and also if you get the chance to, then you can move out from your parents if that's an option. In terms of the debt, I don't think it's a big enough issue. When you're paying it back, you don't tend to notice much. It's not as if it's just one of those things. It's like an introduction to a mortgage. It's there. It's a life debt. Yeah. As soon as you graduate, you're paying a mortgage pretty much. But yeah, I mean, like university, it's great. Like I wouldn't have a lot of skills without going to university, and I wouldn't. There's a lot of very very intelligent lecturers like yourself and a lot of people who've done a lot of research and a lot of people who've worked in industry. Like, I think that's pretty much the criteria for someone to work at MMU, that you've got to have, I think it's like a doctorate, a PhD or something, and you've got to have an industry experience. So I think like you learn from a lot of different and interesting people from different backgrounds, and that as well for me, like living where I live is kind of like a bubble, but then you meet people from around the country and from around the world as well. So I'm quite an advocate of university, unless the people that say it's not worth it are the ones that don't take the opportunities at uni, like making the most of it, I think.
Yeah, I think, well, one thing I have to give a hat tip to the lecturers at the University of Manchester Met, the digital team. I have every admiration for them, and they are super smart people. So, the experience, a wealth of experience between them, and both a lot of people, there's this awful saying, those that can, and those that can't teach. What an absolute crock of crap that is, excuse my French. Every one of those lecturers that I can think of has either worked in industry. I mean, gosh, look at Ali Johns, worked in industry for some of the biggest brands, leading teams. Jeff McCarthy, again, worked for huge brands. And Dave Edmondson, but they're all like really super smart people. And then you've got Dr. Bex, who is huge online, and she speaks all over the world, and she's written books. She even wrote a book around Keep Calm and Carry On. I mean, she's a multi-sited author. So, I rebuke anybody that says those that can, and those that can't teach. It's absolute nonsense. So, yeah, I just needed to get that in there. And I've got so riled up about that, I forgot what your question was.
I forgot as well. I mean, we're just talking about like the importance of university, and I think that everyone should experience it. And like in terms of that, like you shouldn't worry, because you don't tend to notice it going out.
Well, you know what? I think a lot of people. I think when I was younger, then like it's the truth. But in my generation, literally, hardly anybody went to university. It was posh kids that went to university. Literally, nobody went to university from my area. Seriously. It was bankers' children, or it was, you had to be like a dentist or a banker, or you were from really posh families to go to university. Now, pretty much everybody can go to university. Yeah. With, I know that some families still don't have that benefit, but there's so many more people can go and benefit from university, and it is a gift. Yeah. If I'd been, now, if the opportunity had been there all those years ago, then for me, then that would have been amazing. I didn't even get to college because my mum, I got a summer job, and my mum sort of said, hey, well, you can keep the summer job now rather than go to college. So I think it's easy to not appreciate the massive benefit that has become available to young people now, that is through university. Even if you do end up with a debt, then it is a gift that has not necessarily been available to generations previously.
Yeah, sure. And like if anyone's listening to this, like trying to start a business or anything, like I started my business at university, and like the support at the university and different universities is probably different, like enterprise schemes and stuff like that. But MMU, it's really good. Like the innovation centre, I think it's still there. Is it still there?
I think they have the incubator, don't they? For
incubator, yeah.
New startups, yeah, which is really great.
Yeah, it is really good, and like it's there's so much support, but it's not only the support, but the contacts you make. Like I've met a lot of people through uni, so like people that I've worked with, and people who've passed on business. So like it's a good place to network as well, and like
people want you to succeed. People want you to succeed,
Yeah, definitely.
The lecturers want people to succeed, and they're very invested in the students and seeing them do well. So
yeah, definitely. So back to search. Well, I want to talk a little bit about voice search. I know this is a big thing for you. So can you talk to us a little bit about how search engines are processing conversations? I know we mentioned before, there's so many different variations, and there's a lot of things that go into understanding words, like the difference between the animal jaguar and the car jaguar. So how are search engines going about this, and how can brands start to build up pillars so that they can ensure that the website's kind of, I wouldn't say optimized necessarily for it, but making sure that they're ready for it?
Consistent. The thing is, the key is consistency to everything. But I mean, ultimately, voice search is just search. That's it. It's the same thing. It's just mining and extracting words, utilizing the knowledge graph as well. So a few years ago, I went to a summer school on information retrieval in Barcelona, and one of the lecturers was from Google's research team, conversational search research team in Switzerland, and he was talking about how the way that it works is when they're extracting results for search, conversational search, they first check the knowledge graph, because it's back to that different forms of data. Remember I talked about structured data? Databases are the most structured form of data. Yeah, so if you look inside the heart of a WordPress site into the cPanel and look at the PHP MyAdmin, that's a database, yeah. Or tabular data or a spreadsheet, that's a very strong form of data, yeah. Incredibly powerful, almost too powerful, yeah. And then you have like semi-structured data, which a lot of people don't realise, but they call it, a lot of people refer to structured data when it's really semi-structured data, because it's not fully structured like a database, yeah. So that's things like schema, RDF, the web ontology language, all these different types of linked data, as Tim Berners-Lee referred to it many years ago. The web of data versus the web of words, yeah. So things that are connected, like when you look up, name me a famous person, Van Diesel, yeah, Van Diesel. If you look up Van Diesel online, and you'll say, this is Van Diesel, he was born on this day, he was da-da-da-da-da, he was married to that person, he starred in these films, blah, blah, blah. You look up a film, all the other related films are there. That's an example of the relationships from structured or data, the knowledge bank, if you like. So conversational search first checks all of that to build answers, yeah? And then it fills in so it checks the databases, known trusted databases, then the knowledge graphs, and then the semi-structured data schema and so forth. And then when it's running out of gaps to fill, it'll just go and check the web of text. But I imagine it probably now uses also the things like Google BERT, machine learning, natural language, all these. I mean, Google BERT has been massive for natural language processing understanding. So that's probably feeding a lot into voice search now, both English and internationally. Feature snippets as well comes from there. And I think also that, as I imagine, there'll be very little of it that actually just comes from the blurb words completely, because there will be structure and order. So what I would say to people who are like, oh, I must optimize this page for search. Yes, you do. But you need to just optimize it by adding structure and order and make it semantically clear what the topic is, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, search engines can understand everything when I write this 5,000 word long blog post.
Just answer the question.
Yeah, exactly. Just answer the question, but make sure that there is structure.
Yeah.
Make sure you use things like table of contents, because they're a form of semi-structured data. Excuse me. Make sure you use things like unordered lists, ordered lists, tabular data in between to provide clues. Yeah. So that's where voice search is coming from. To send the structured data, the semi-structured data, the blurb, yeah. Probably now with machine learning questions also asked in there as well. I know, for instance, that Microsoft have this thing called MS Markup, which is a question and answer data set. In actual fact, machine learning is being trained with question and answer data sets, yeah? So that's probably feeding in as well to voice search, yeah? So it's still not there yet. There's a way to go, but it's definitely, the future. It really is. Because, there'll always be a place for people who want to sit there maybe and do things like desktop search. Everything always has a place. But eventually, we'll tip into that space at some point in the future where it'll just become human nature to ask a search engine a question rather than go and type it. At the minute, I imagine the vast majority are still going to Google and typing in because the answers are not that reliable. And actually, I've got 5 Google Homes all over my house. They're really annoying, actually. They interrupt each other. You ask a question of one in the living room, the kitchen answers, yeah? And it doesn't even know to say the words 5 Live, yeah? What's that radio channel, 5 Live, yeah? It says, here we are, 5 Live on the TV, yeah? Here we are streaming 5 Live from Spotify. Is it Sports Live? Is there a program? Talk Sport? I can't remember. But anyway, ultimately my husband always switches it on. But the search engine pronounces it wrong. That annoys me every single time. I use it mostly for Spotify, for music. I check the weather. Most people check the weather. So it's not amazing. It sometimes misunderstands things you say as well. Really annoying. So, yeah, but it'll get there, like everything. Back in the day, you remember the massive house brick mobile phones? You're probably too young for that. But people laughed at somebody with a house brick mobile phone. They'll never catch on. Here we are now. None of us would dream of going out without our mobile phone. It's like part of our arm.
Yeah. Well, people wear it like wearable technology is a big thing now, and Google Glasses are probably coming.
Probably come back. Yeah. I mean, again, Google Glass was a bit embarrassing. I mean, how ugly was that? That was the equivalent of the massive house brick of a mobile phone. It's like, talk about, you may as well have a sign on your head saying, I am a geek. Yeah. Okay, well, things will come back, yeah. Evolve.
So, like in terms of for listeners with WordPress websites, how would you actionably go about adding schema markup data on websites? So, is there any specific plugins that you like to use simple plugins to use, or?
Well, I mean, I get that not everybody is that massively technical, and they don't necessarily want to do their own custom schema or anything. I tend to have my own custom schema. But I know that Yoast has got a plugin that actually links together lots and lots of different schema points. I use WordLift, which is great as well. WordLift it's very good structured data, and has a massive impact. It builds vocabularies that are machine learned, powered by machine learning, and Andrea Volpini is behind that. Really good. It's really good. So that's a plugin that you can get, WordLift. And then obviously the schema app as well. Martha Van Berkel, super smart lady. She's built a great app. She's an amazing schema lady. That's called Schema App. And then there's lots and lots of tools out there to do your own. Merkle have tools to build schema. And obviously there's even, the last time I checked, there was even the event schema markup that you could use in Google Search Console to do data highlighting. So data highlighting is pretty good. I've used that on projects as well. So there's loads of things out there. And I would encourage people to increasingly use it more. even the things that Google's not necessarily supporting yet, because the chances are it's going to be supported in the future. And if it's not, it's all good experience. Be agile, be better at implementing things. If it takes you 2 years to implement something because you're an enterprise brand, well, I'm afraid you deserve to have your backside kicked by the affiliates who are agile. And I see a lot of that.
So it's just
it can't be like that nowadays. No. Got to keep moving. Search is always going to keep moving.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and one thing I wanted to ask you, and I asked Rick last week the same question, was you can add all the schema markup data and everything, get your website optimized and everything, but for products such as Alexa, go on over there. Oh, it's just gone off. So that product over there.
We have to talk like that about the G product.
It'll go like that. But yeah, anyway, so obviously Amazon's like a powerhouse, and people pay for ads on Google Shopping, and they've got Google Assistant. So do you think ads will start to play a part in voice devices in the future? Paid results.
Yeah. Well, I think ultimately there will eventually be a presence of ads and organic everywhere, because the search engine is a commercial organisation.
Yeah.
None of us is not a charity. They also need, people sometimes do, a lot of the time, prefer organic. I see a lot of people complaining about, Google's ads are everywhere. You know what? People still scroll past ads a lot of the time. I scroll past ads. Do you scroll past ads? Do you often scroll past ads? Yeah, I scroll past ads a lot.
Not usually.
The point is,
for the most part, well, a certain percentage of the time that they're not always exactly specific with organic searching.
Exactly. So anyway, the point, that's kind of, I digress slightly there. But the point is, I think eventually everything will have a paid and an organic element to it. And I think the two work side by side really well. And but I think the reason why at the moment there's not really a massive presence of paid in voice search is because there can only be one or maybe two answers, yeah. And it's really hard. I always talk about the four candles, the two Ronnies, 4 candles and 4 candles. When you read that in words, you realise there is a difference. But when you hear it in voice, they sound exactly the same, yeah. Voice search is probably harder because you have the challenge of misunderstanding words linguistically and voice as well, yeah. So I think that in reality, it probably needs to be a bit further on for ads to start to really have any kind of reliable presence in voice search. I think there'll always be the importance of something organic in all of these spaces. At the heart of search is information retrieval, and that community is very respected and they're big advocates of fairness, yeah. In fact, there is fields growing of fairness in AI, yeah. I think they love the open source effect, yeah. And organic search is almost like an open source effect, yeah, of search, yeah. So I can't see anytime soon anybody getting rid of organic. I think ads will come into everything eventually for monetization. But at the same time, I think search engines probably realise things have got to be a lot better. The precision must be higher, accuracy must be higher before you start to monetize things, because otherwise you're just going to put people off, and where they're going to go if they get bad results from their paid search but no organic results? They're going to go to another search engine. Every search engine has competitors, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if there's too many ads, it may kill off, Google.
Universal search. People have many different information needs.
Yeah.
you don't have to just go for depth. You can go for breadth of query. You know, there's many, many different things. And do you know what as well? People who type the same word, people have many ways of typing the same thing, but have different meanings. And also many people have the same type different things for the same thing as well. So it goes two ways, yeah? There's this thing called the vocabulary problem. I'll give you an example. What does Manchester, if I type the word Manchester in, yeah? So if I type the word cafes in Manchester, what does that mean? What am I looking for?
Well, it could mean Manchester in North of England, America, Canada, Australia.
What else? What else could it mean?
I'm not sure. What? Cafes in Manchester?
Yeah, but does it mean Manchester, Manchester? Or does it mean Manchester, Manchester? Because there's Greater Manchester. There's the outskirts, the post town of Manchester, which is another parameter.
Oh, yeah.
Within Northern Quarter, Whalley Range. You know, is it Greater Manchester? Is it Greater Manchester like me in Rochdale? Yeah. Or is it actual Manchester? The city centre where nobody, do you know what I mean? Where it's about understanding exactly. I mean, obviously, intent is a big thing, and obviously, particularly with some of the things that are fuzzy around the edges, like Rochdale, Lancashire, Rochdale, Greater Manchester, Oldham, Lancashire, Oldham, Greater, Merseyside, which I know you're originally from. The boundaries of Merseyside have changed many times. Yeah. Sefton, Merseyside, the Wirral. And there's councils, there's post towns, there's like administrative areas. It's really not easy for search engines to understand these things.
It's hard for humans to understand them in the first place, really, because sometimes it's listed somewhere, like on the post, for example. Sometimes it's Wirral, South Wirral.
But you know what? In addition to all of that, there is no shortage of queries for us to meet the information need of, yeah. One thing brands can do is just focus on a handful of keywords. It's a joke, seriously. Then they're like, oh my God, this week, my rankings have dropped from like position 1 to position 10. Well, maybe query intent shifted. Maybe search behaviour suddenly shifted around that query. That is a dangerous game to play, hanging all your chances on just a handful of queries. I always take the broad approach that eventually, like, you become so authoritative in all of those things that you can't fail to rank in the top 10 for the big stuff as well, because you're meeting all these informational needs. Yeah. There's a really interesting book that I just finished, and I've been talking about this quite a bit this past few weeks, called Search Result Diversification. And in that, it looks at what's the best result. The best result when a query is ambiguous is the site that can meet all of the information, the URL that can meet all of the informational needs. Obviously, it depends on the query. If the query is clearly transactional, then it's going to be a shopping site. But if it's a query that could have vagueness, the best result is probably the one that could meet all of those needs, yeah? And then, yeah. So you have to, there's no shortage of queries for us to help with.
So when you're going through, what are your best ways of researching queries? Do you go through like social listening tools like
loads of things.
Forums like Answer the Public? I know you're speaking to Mark Williams-Cook, and he's got his own tool.
Oh, yeah, that's a good tool, yeah.
So I saw that, and then I compared it to Answer the Public, and it just completely blows out of the water. Like I was really impressed by that tool. Like,
you know what, as well. So there's lots of great tools out there. So obviously, Answer the Public and also Asked, and then there's Our Own Eyes. Go to the search results, type the query in, see what comes up. Yeah, that's a big one. A lot of people don't do that. Yeah, what comes up in images. Also, go and look at image search, look at the clustering and categorization, because images are treated differently to words. Look at topics, yeah, of those kinds of things. Then go off and research those topics further. Forums, sign up to newsletters in industries, for instance. Do Google alerts on an industry. See the topics, what's the hot stuff that they're talking about. Look at things like Days of the Year, which is owned by Jono and his wife, Jono Alderson from Yoast and his wife, which looks at, these are the things that people are talking about in a particular vertical. Yeah, all I'm saying is go and look at Days of the Year and maybe categorise all those days according to the vertical. What are the things that matter? If you're in construction, probably hug a plumber. It's a day where you could do a bit of screaming and shouting, need some content, yeah? When are the awards in your industry? When are the industry events? So just go, you have to get to know the industry, yeah? Who are the key players? What are competitors creating? Are they getting traction? There's loads and loads of places. Link analysis. Link analysis is a great way of seeing what the topics are, because you just literally extract all the URLs of the blogs from the competitors. It provides quite a good picture of, especially if you go back over the last year, you can see exactly what they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
Which immediately maps seasons of the year, yeah.
Yeah. So you quickly mentioned like social. So is there any way that you can use social to kind of benefit you from an SEO point of view? I know there's no kind of ranking factors, but there's quite a lot of correlations, isn't there, between a good.
Social is hugely important.
Yeah.
Social is a search, right? Okay, I always use this example. Search is a high intent channel. When people go to a search engine, they are the hunters. They're looking for something. In social, they're often not looking. They want to chat. You're having to interject politely, or just as an aside, like you're tapping them on the people on the shoulder saying, "Oh, what do you think of this?" Blah, blah, blah. And actually, if you oversell, people get annoyed at you and start to unlike you and so forth. But the point is, the intent is high with search. Yeah. For me, take it to an analogy of football. So search and social are members of the same football team. Search, direct is obviously a big driver of traffic. The bigger the brand grows. But that goal by direct was set up by lots of channels working together. Social is the wing. It's running up and down the side, yeah, tapping people on the shoulder, passing the ball around. And finally, organic is like passing it forward. And direct, if you've built a brand, is like the goal scorer, or organic is the goal scorer. Social doesn't score that many goals, but if it wasn't there, you'd really miss it off the team, yeah. Is that a good analogy?
Love it, absolutely love that. I'm going to make that into a put it on link there. I love that. I've never heard that analogy before. I never thought about that way either. that was
you have to have everything. Yeah, you have to have everything together, working together.
I was trying to add something, but I think you've got everything on it. I know we've touched on it like quite a lot of times, but I don't think we've kind of like given the listeners like a definition, like a full definition of informational retrieval. Would you be able to give us kind of like a bit of an explanation? I know it's obviously a huge.
I think it's one of those things. There's many definitions. Yeah, I think it's a topic that information retrieval researchers actually research. It's like people in SEO. What is SEO? Well, we know it stands for search engine optimization, but what really is SEO? People have like all these opinions. What is SEO? Yeah. I think it's the same information retrieval. But do you remember that when Google first started, Sergey Brin and Larry Page said, what we want to do is organize all the information of the world. Yeah, what is it? What did they say? Our mission is to organize all the information of the world in an accessible fashion. Something along those lines. I've got the exact quote. But that's it. It's like you're taking every piece of the information in the world and organising it as much as possible in a library. that is accessible for all, easy to find. You know, it literally is that. It's like a huge library. The web is the library front door and the wealth of knowledge. Then the index is all the books that the search engines have decided, or the pages of books which search engines have decided are worthy to add into their shelves. And obviously the results are the equivalent of you go into the library and you ask a librarian to bring you a particular book or a page of a book, and she goes to the shelf and she finds it and returns it. So information retrieval is about the crawling or discovery of good stuff, good information, or just information that is above a certain threshold. Then the filing, the librarian has got the trolley and she's going off filing it on all. I've said she there, that's me being biased, or he, I should have said she or he. Sorry, that's my conditional biasing there. So he or she, the librarian, takes the trolley and files all the books on all the shelves according to genre, topic, etc. And then somebody goes into the library and asks for a book or whatever, a reference, and the librarian spits out, well, she doesn't spit it out literally, but she goes and brings a book. That's the serving of the results. So it's crawling, indexing, serving of information. And for information, that's just web search. Information retrieval goes far beyond that. Even music information retrieval. You know, Spotify is music information retrieval. Pinterest is image information retrieval. Amazon is a search engine. eBay is a search. Everything. These are all just search engines, ultimately. Yeah. I know we don't think of them as that, but everything that you can search and seek information on is a search engine. Even your Shopify website is a search engine. Yeah. So that's information retrieval. That's it. It's everything. It's all around us.
Out of IR, like what interests you the most? That bit, like what makes you tick about that? Like what makes you want to research it, and like what do you find the most? Is it something you've just always wanted? Or
well, I probably got interested in it in 2000 when I was doing my masters, really.
Yeah.
But I'd come across crawling prior to that because I'd had a project that was parameter driven that totally fell apart, and all the parameters just got crawled and just it totally tanked, and it was just a disaster. And that really got me interested in the whole notion of crawl tank, where a site just gets overcrawled and just falls apart, because it happened to me. And so that was even before I got into doing my masters and digging around in Google Scholar. But then when I started to find the papers, I was all over it like a rash. And there's a really interesting summary of web crawling by Mark New York, who's a researcher at Google. You should read it if you get a chance. It literally looks at the history of crawling. So I'm interested in crawling, but at the same time, I'm interested in all kinds of things, queries, just web search generally, just understanding disambiguation in content, but also marketing, because I'm interested in the digital marketing side of it. So I really do want to help brands that work with me to do well and help them to I absolutely, I check rankings all the time. I check why is that down? I was like, oh my God. Even on Christmas Day, I'm like, oh my God, I hate it when the traffic's down. But the point is, so I'm interested in it all. I'm probably not as interested as a lot of people are in the link acquisition side of SEO, because I've just never really got my thing to that extent. And but yeah, I just find it all very interesting. Yeah,
Based on what you learn,
fascinating.
based on what you're learning at the moment and what you're reading, and your past experience, can you see any future predictions on what you think's coming in search in your space, and what you think's coming as a whole and as a marketing industry? Do you think?
Well, I think overall, I think trust is going to become increasingly important because of all this fake news and the GDPR thing, and there's a lot of stuff coming through around cookies and the use of third-party data. I think it's going to be increasingly important to go a bit back to basics and build good old-fashioned relationships with your customers, and be that trusted brand. I think that's going to be important. I think, but at the same time, I think that there'll be a marrying of that with increasingly intelligent programmatic solutions. So the machine learning side of things. But at the same time, there is concerns over that because, as I said, there are fields building up now about fairness and trust in AI, because every field has the potential to have a bad actor in it. And information retrieval, and particularly machine learning and the likes of Google BERT and these black box algorithms do raise flags and concern, because in the wrong hands they could be very, very dangerous. So I think increasingly search will be all around us in an omnipresent kind of way in everything we do over time. I think there'll be an increasing element of personalisation. I think the need to get people to opt in to personalisation will become increasingly important. And it's an exchange value. Trust. I'll give you my knowledge, I'll give you my data if you do things that help me to trust you, yeah? And together people can co-create with these brands, and that's the highest level. If you remember at university, you'll have looked at the loyalty ladder. So CRM, customer relationship management, is an increasingly important area of just life search, SEO as well. I think SEO could do far worse than join forces with the CRM team. I think there's far too often a disregard for SEO in some of these other marketing departments, and the results are impacted negatively because of that disregard, because search is all around us, yeah. There'll always be a need for search engines to understand these fuzzy edges, if you like, dangly nodes, they call it, actually. Things that just, it's true, they call it a dangly node. Edges that just are not connected to things that they're related to, on the edges of the link graphs, yeah? It's like the edge of the world, yeah? So I think trust, increasing automation, personalisation, mass personalisation, but as a trusted source of information, and an increasing move to online. I'm concerned for the high street, but I think the high street will become more of an experience rather than, I think the leisure industry, the experience industry will benefit from that. The city centres will be very much a part of the experience economy as such, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm conscious of time, so we'll
we've been for so long. I hope he's just come in. It's my son's old bedroom here.
Surprised we haven't seen the dog in this time. Is she okay? Or is he?
Oh yeah. Oh, the dog's outside. My husband's just told me he's just going for some ant killer. We managed to get an ant hill under a cherry tree, and we're trying to find ways to kindly get rid of ants.
Oh, dear. Yeah. So last couple of questions. So, I've certainly seen a couple of people mention it. I'm not really convinced about it, to be honest. But people talk about automation software. So, basically, when you plug a piece of code into your website, and then it takes recommendations, and then automatically alters the code in your website. So, say, there's title tags that need changing and things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think.
Or have you not seen it?
Well, you know what? I really don't have any problem with programmatic solutions as long as they're not manipulative.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, ultimately, search engines and all technology companies and lots of these big startups do things to adapt to queries. I mean, search engines change our page titles and meta descriptions to meet a query better. Yeah, if they think that the information on the page is fitting, so they do it. There's no harm with. I'm a big advocate actually for finding scalable but ethical solutions. Yeah, because our lives are too short. Yeah, and some of the biggest sites in the world are built using technology and smart solutions. Yeah. And they do very well, yeah. It's when you're doing things that is spammy, yeah. Web spam's a challenge, yeah. There's a difference between, I mean, funnily enough, Glenn Gabe, the other day, who's another SEO, AI can rank as well. Content created using artificial intelligence can rank. If it's well written enough. And featured snippets using Google BERT, for instance, or an adaptation of the Google BERT, is what is powering feature snippets. It's an extraction, machine learned extraction from a web page that's adjusted slightly to meet queries or answer a question. So I don't have any issue with that. I'd have to look at the software you're talking about. I'd be very careful of it because a lot of automation processes sometimes have unexpected results.
Yeah.
And they tend to do things that you don't realise they're doing until after the damage has been caused. And I know, hence the reason I crawl rank and so forth, yeah. You think you're getting rid of one thing, but on a site that's like a database-driven site, you know, you suddenly like tank it by accident. So I've done that many times, but on my own stuff, yeah. So I would judge every piece of software critically, test it maybe on a very small scale, like a unit test. Never roll anything out big unless you know it's going to produce the desired results. Yeah. But there's no harm in automation.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's not malicious automation or spam.
Yeah, so like as long as it's not for manipulation and you use it for the right thing and on a smart basis.
As long as you're not creating spam, as long as you're not creating spam, manipulation, anything like that.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So I think we'll wrap up there. So what have you got coming up? So what are you doing at the moment? Are you working on any papers? I know you said you've got a 13-year. You've been working on a project for the past 13 years. Obviously, you can't say what it is at the moment, but
well, I just don't. Yeah, I'm working with my developer on some stuff at the moment. I've also some of the clients that had to pause temporarily because of coronavirus come back, so I'm working with them. Some never went anyway, so I'm working with them on some of their projects, kind of on an ongoing basis. I'm just about to start some consultancy working with some in-house teams, helping them, some brands in-house teams, helping them to scale up and kind of guiding them, if you like. And what else am I doing? Dogs. You hear the dog there? Yeah. That's kind of enough to keep me busy for now. So, yeah, I've got, a lot going on. But at the same time, I'm busy.
Got a lot on. So where can people find you? So if people want to get in touch with you, send you a message, listen to anything that you've done, view anything that you've written, where can they find some of your writing, for example? Have you is there any links?
I've written stuff for Search Engine Land and Search Engine Journal. I don't have enough time, unfortunately, to do more. So Smart Insights, I've written for them as well. You can find me on my website, which is bertey.com. I need to do more writing there as well. There is some stuff I've written over there as well, but I'm just, again, never enough hours in the day. And you can find me on LinkedIn at Ms. Dawn Anderson. You can find me on Twitter at Donny Ando.